Welcome back to Skylanders in Smash, everybody. As you've no doubt guessed from the title of the video, we're talking about the elusive elven ninja, Stealth Elf, another iconic character of the franchise. Stealth Elf is a life Skylander that fights with both speed and deception, as she's able to quickly slash and stab her enemies with her blades, while also being able to turn invisible and summon decoys of herself to confuse and take down her foes with ease. Unlike the last two fighters we've covered, this time we've got a lot more material to work with since there are quite a few ninja fighters in Smash. The most obvious comparison is Sheik from The Legend of Zelda, both in terms of appearance and abilities. So let's quit dawdling and get right into the moves. But before we start, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. As always, let's start with the neutral attack. For Stealth Elf, she should have a choosable neutral, aka both a standard and rapid jab. Interestingly, her standard jab is actually based on one of her upgrades, in particular her Elf Jitsu ability, where she's able to perform new combo attacks. One of those combos allows her to shoot out poison spores from her hands at the end. So that's what I'm thinking for her standard jab, a 3-hit combo where she finishes by shooting those spores at her enemies. Now, abilities that inflict poison are a thing in Smash, or at least abilities that inflict a poison-like effect. But the gist of it is, once a player gets hit with these spores, they take damage over time. Alternatively, her rapid jab is her repeatedly spinning with her arms outstretched and slashing her opponents. The attack is quite similar to her WoW POW from the second game, Knife Blender, which we will come back to later in the video. Additionally, if you wanted a reference to a move in Smash, her rapid jab is similar to Falco's. Now we're on to the Smash attacks, where we'll mainly be looking at another ninja in Smash, which is appropriate, since the word ninja is literally in his name. I am of course talking about Greninja. His is very fitting, seeing as all his Smash attacks involve him attacking with his water kunai. So presumably Stealth Elf's Smash attacks would be very similar to his on account of her blades. Forward Smash is an inward slash with one of her blades. Another option is Joker's, who's not a ninja per se, but does attack with a bladed weapon and other ninja-like attacks. His forward smash is him swinging his knife in a downward slash, so that's another way for Stealth Elf to attack. Up smash is her holding her blades in a reverse grip, then slashing downwards. Other options are a sort of knife uppercut like Joker's, or a 3-hit combo like Meta Knight's. And finally, down smash is her inwardly slashing her blades on both sides. Or she could slash in front of then behind like most sword fighters. I did also consider that maybe she could perform some kicks for her smash attacks, like Sheik's forward smash or Falco's down smash, but funnily enough, in Skylanders, even though she's a physical fighter, she rarely attacks with both kicks or punches. She primarily fights with her blades, and everything else in her arsenal. So I'm going to put more focus on her blades for the rest of her basic moves from now on. Next up are the tilts. First, her forward tilt is not like most fighters. Some characters in Smash have forward tilts that can lead into combos, essentially being able to hit players 2 or 3 times per attack. In the case of Stealth Elf, her forward tilt is essentially the normal combo move she does when attacking in Skylanders. Specifically, she performs a slash, then a spin attack, and finally a lunge attack. Up next is the up tilt, where we're looking at Joker once again. His up tilt is him tossing his knife upwards and twirling it, potentially hitting multiple times. Stealth Elf would do more or less the same. Finally, some fighters' down tilts, like the aforementioned Joker's, allow them to slide across the ground, usually with a kick. Therefore, I believe the same should apply to Stealth Elf. I also realize that this is somewhat breaking the rule I said earlier, on focusing on Stealth Elf's blades for her attacks, but I never said I would exclude punches or kicks from her moveset. For her dash attack, I'm thinking of just a simple running kick, but I have a good reason for that other than just it being the simplest option. Her WoW POW from the third game, Surprise Tiger, ends with her delivering a running kick, much like many fighters in Smash. As for her movement speed, not only is she fast, but I'm thinking that she should be the fastest out of all these Skylanders. I can't think of a Skylander that could potentially have Sonic levels of speed, or at least I haven't come across one yet. So until then, I'm considering Stealth Elf to be the fastest Skylander in Smash. Onto the aerials. First up, her Nair is the spin attack I mentioned earlier, just in the air. Falco's Nair is also a good frame of reference. Another possibility is something similar to Greninja's Nair, where he releases a blast of water around himself. Only in Stealth Elf's case, instead of water, it's the poison spores I mentioned earlier. Next, her forward air can either be a single horizontal slash, like Greninja's, or a series of slashes, which can either be performed in front of her, like Meta Knight's forward air, or she spins with each slash, like his back air. Speaking of which, Stealth Elf's back air can either be the attack I just mentioned, or it can be just a single upward slash, like Joker's. Finally, for up air and down air, we're going back to Sheik and Greninja because they both share the same attacks for these moves. Both of these fighters perform an upside down corkscrew kick for their up air, and a dive kick straight towards the ground for their down air. In Sheik's case, she performs a diagonal dive kick. Stealth Elf's moves would be more or less the same, but me personally, her down air should be a vertical dive kick instead of diagonal. Now to her grab and throws. To no surprise, her grab is just a standard grab with her hands, and her pummel can either be a headbutt or knee attack. Forward throw is fairly straightforward, just a kick that sends the opponent flying. Let's move on to the up throw next, which is a copy of Sheik's up throw, where she performs a handstand and kicks their opponent upwards. Down throw is also inspired from Sheik's, where she places her target on the ground and performs an axe kick, which is basically her slamming her leg on them. Another option is Kirby's or Meta Knight's down throw, where they repeatedly kick their opponent on the ground. Finally, I wanted to save the back throw for last, since it's my favorite. Also inspired by Meta Knight, for her back throw, Stealth Elf teleports behind her opponent and slashes at them with her blades. I like this move a lot, because it incorporates her ability to vanish, which we'll get into shortly. And before we get into these specials, let's quickly go over the edge attack, which is just a simple slash with her blades. As always, let's cover the neutral special first. Now this move I had the most trouble coming up with because I wanted to avoid redundancy in her attacks and I had multiple ideas I kept mulling over. Ultimately, I settled on her Knife Blender ability, which I foreshadowed earlier. Initially, this move was going to be a chargeable one, where the more the move is held, the more powerful the attack. But after thinking about it, it should be more like the other special moves that involve spinning rapidly, like Luigi's down special or Ice Climber's side special, and most notably, Meta Knight's neutral special. A handy aspect of these kinds of moves is that when activated in the air, if the special move button is mashed repeatedly, the fighter can gain some height, allowing them more maneuverability in the air. So of course, Stealth Elf's neutral special would share those same attributes. We're moving on to the up special / recovery, which was much easier to come up with. It's simply Sheik's recovery, where she vanishes in a puff of smoke. But there is one difference between Stealth Elf's and Sheik's recovery, where once again, we're going back to the spores. Not only does she use the spores to vanish, but the move also deals damage to fighters in range. And like I mentioned earlier, the spores poison and deal damage to them over time. I wanted to incorporate the spores more often in her moveset, since she's a Life Skylander, which is the element that represents nature. Now let's dive into the most complicated specials, starting with the second most complex, the down special, which is her Arboreal Acrobatics ability. Initially, it was going to emulate Sheik's down special, where she flips forward and kicks her target, bouncing off of them. But then I discovered another move that is, in my opinion, better suited to emulate for this ability, which is Diddy Kong's side special. While yes, he still flips forward, once he makes contact with his opponent, he can latch onto them and continuously strike them like a pummel. During this process, the move can be pressed again to smack away the fighter. Alternatively, if the move is pressed again after flipping, the move turns into a standard kick attack. For Stealth Elf, the only differences in the move are the latch attacks, where in her case, she would use her blades to stab her opponent, dealing constant damage, and while latched, she can launch them away with a huge stab from both of her blades. Another possibility is that while latched, she can perform a single outward slash at their neck/neck area with both of her blades. Although that might be a little too brutal for this franchise, so let me know what you guys think in the comments. And now let's talk about the side special, her decoy ability. At first, it was pretty much going to be near identical to Greninja's side special, but after some reworking, while the decoy ability still has its similarities, it is quite different now in comparison. The move starts with Stealth Elf turning invisible and moving forward across the stage while the special move button is being held, her location indicated by the footprints she leaves. At the same time, a decoy image of Stealth Elf is put in her place after she vanishes, which is basically a copy of her in-game model. The image can also move horizontally back and forth with the control stick, albeit at a slower pace than the actual Stealth Elf. Once the button is released, or the decoy takes any damage at all, Stealth Elf reappears where her footprints left off, and in place of the decoy, a scarecrow replica of Stealth Elf is created in its stead, spinning and equipped with blades placed at the ends of their arms, potentially dealing damage to any foes nearby. These scarecrows can be demolished by other fighters, or will self-destruct after a while. Either way, upon defeat, they release an explosion, damaging nearby fighters. All of these traits I mentioned are possible upgrades for Stealth Elf's decoy ability, but to balance that, only one of these scarecrows can be present on the stage, as opposed to 3 in Skylanders, which is way too much in my opinion. Lastly, we've arrived at the final smash, which, surprise surprise, it's based on a Smash Fighters. Jokes aside, yes, it's a full copy of Sheik's Final Smash. Well, not exactly a full copy. The move itself is pretty much the same. Stealth Elf dashes forward, trapping the first opponent she comes into contact with, then slashes at her foe repeatedly until sending them flying with a final heavy slash. As an added detail, we could incorporate her Shadow's Bane Blade Dance upgrade, where she's now slashing with magical blades hovering beside her. But there is one glaring difference that I want to highlight. So rather than just simply explaining it, I'm going to be presenting a diagram to better showcase what I'm talking about. The one unique aspect I'm adding to Stealth Elf's Final Smash mainly focuses on how she captures her opponents, or more specifically, where she dashes. In this diagram, you can see that Stealth Elf is at point A, and her target is at point B. Activating her Final Smash allows her to dash from A to B, successfully entrapping her target. Simple as that. The distance from A to B is the maximum distance her Final Smash allows her to travel. Now let's say that her target is just out of range of B. In this case, Stealth Elf is unable to reach them. Well, here's where the unique part kicks in. Now let's say that there's a point C on the other side of B, and the distance from A to B is the same as B to C. Right before she dashes, if the control stick is held in the opposite direction of where she's traveling, in this case to the left, Stealth Elf will instead teleport to C and dash towards B, i.e. the direction the control stick is being held, ultimately catching her target. For all you Smash veterans, obviously this detail is inspired from Joker's Final Smash, where he's able to rush forward and backward to capture foes. Personally, I really like this detail as it accentuates Stealth Elf's ninja skills and gives more variety to the Final Smashes of Skylanders. We're all done with the moveset, now onto the cosmetics. As per usual, we start with the on-screen appearance, which is her appearing in an explosion of her spores. Next are the taunts. One is her turning her back to the camera and posing, like how she does when she's summoned in-game. Second taunt is her performing some sort of acrobatic move, something similar to Sheik's up taunt. And final taunt is her brandishing her blades, either by spinning them or performing swiping motions with them. Next, crowd cheer is very straightforward, a 2-syllable chant. Stealth Elf, Stealth Elf, Stealth Elf. Onto the victory poses. First two reference her intro animations in her trailers. The first pose references her first trailer, where she looks behind her, slashes with her blades, and finally vanishes, her glowing eyes being the only thing present, and later dashing towards the camera. Second pose references her Skylanders Giants trailer, where she performs a handstand into a flip, and then performs a jump attack towards the camera. The final pose I had a lot of trouble coming up with, but I was able to come up with something original. It opens on Stealth Elf's Scarecrow decoy, then later, it slowly gets surrounded by green smoke, until out of the cloud, Stealth Elf jumps out using her acrobatics, posing after landing. Finally, we've reached the alternate costumes. Stealth Elf's actually got quite a few counterparts. First up is Legendary Stealth Elf, which is just like the other legendary variants, a navy blue and gold recolor. Next is her costume in Swap Force, where she's dressed in the all-black garb that ninjas typically wear. There's also Dark Stealth Elf, which is the dark variant of the costume I mentioned before. It could also reference the evil ninja minion, the evil version of Stealth Elf created by the villain Chaos. Then there's her supercharger counterpart, Super Shot Stealth Elf, who is equipped with a gun that shoots daggers. And for some reason, this counterpart also has a dark variant, Dark Super Shot Stealth Elf. And if that wasn't enough, there's yet another variant named Instant Super Shot Stealth Elf, which is her dressed in this wooden attire. Finally, there's Awakened Stealth Elf, her counterpart from Ring of Heroes, where she's wearing a headband, along with gauntlets on her arms and legs. as well as being equipped with new blades. Now that's 8 costumes, but to be honest, I'm not satisfied with our selection here, especially with all the Super Shock counterparts. So I want to throw out a couple more ideas for costumes, all of which are original, since we've already covered all the official costumes for Stealth Elf. For one, there's many Elven Skylanders that could be emulated in a costume for Stealth Elf, as well as a purple variant to reference Spyro, her close friend and leader of these Skylanders. Finally, there's many elf NPCs in the games that can be referenced in Stealth Elf's, or really any Elven Skylanders costumes. For instance, there's the Frost Elves in Swap Force, the Collector in Superchargers, and finally Grandmaster Camouflage in Imaginators, which is actually perfect for Stealth Elf, since Camouflage was her old master. And like that, we are done with Stealth Elf in Smash. Next video is going to cover my absolute favorite Skylander, so stay tuned for that. But for now, thank you all for watching, and I will see all you lovely people soon.